Hi YouTube and followers of Show That Pedal, thanks for tuning in again. It's a new look Show That Pedal because I'm now in the studio. So it's at an unnamed location deep in the heart of Lincolnshire, but so I wanted to do a channel called Show That Pedal really because a lot of the times on the more popular and certainly more subscribed to pedal shows, they always show pedals that they either want to sell, in which case you don't really know whether you're getting a fully sort of independent view of their thoughts on the pedal, because you know, if they want to sell it, then they're going to make it sound good. And how do they make it sound good? Is that with good guitars, good amps, or sort of, you know, post editing and stuff? I'm not going to do any editing. This is filmed just using my Samsung phone, and I won't be editing anything. But anyway, so it's to show cheap pedals really through relatively cheap rigs. This is a Les Paul Studio which I bought second hand off of eBay, and it was less than £500. It's fully American, with all of the sort of appointments you'd expect, other than the fact it's not. I don't think it's got bass buckers. It'll be like T497 and T500 pickups or whatever they're called. This is a second hand amp which I got, so that's a 1B15 PV, an old PV. It used to belong to an old British blues guy, quite famous, called Kevin Thorpe. So this came up on eBay. I went to buy it. I didn't know that it was his. The 4B10 cabinet's over there as well, but this was Kevin's. So it's done many a good blues gig, which is handy because that's the sort of music I'm interested in. But this particular show is, although I'm telling you that, you know, this is relatively cheap gear, it wouldn't have been cheap new obviously, but I bought this second hand, so it was in the relatively low hundreds. Similarly with this guitar, you know, it's over £1,000 if you want to buy it new, but I got it for sort of less than half the price that it would be new. Anyway, so it's about the pedals obviously, and so pedal order, it's always up to the individual what order to put pedals in, but depending on what sort of sound you're after, you can always ask people's opinion, or you can do a bit of research. I found that having the tuner first makes sense because it just mutes the signal, and it's just nice and small and out of the way at the end there. It's not a Boss tuner, it's a Black's tuner, which was about 30 or 40 quid, brand new from somewhere like Tom Ann or Anderton's. Next, it's a Marshall pedal board which I've only just acquired, originally for use in shops. So I thought, well, that'd be good to actually have as a really rugged, robust pedal board, and it's got the daisy chain built in, and a plug at the back for you to put your 9-volt power source adapter in. And of course, I haven't really given too much thought to the milliamps that the adapter can actually handle. Bearing in mind I've got 8 pedals there, and so I've got the tuner. It's going. I've got the power source, sorry, out of the wall into the back. The electrics are fine in here, by the way, so it's not a matter of bad electrics. So I've got the power going into the back of the Marshall pedal. I might show you that later on. It's a model PB8, and I do understand that these were originally made just to sell, display, power and sell the Marshall pedals, of which I've got a couple on here. And the interesting thing is that I have screwed the Marshall pedals to this because there were triangular shaped holes, so 2 holes at the top, 1 hole at the bottom, and all you had to do was just remove the screws, sit the pedal onto the surface, which is metal, and screw it back on again. But of course there was issues there, because the screws weren't long enough to go through the metal and into the pedal, and catch the pedal and grip it and hold it onto the thing. So there was an issue there. There's also an issue with the rubber base on the bottom of the pedal, which again needs removing. So there are issues with this proprietary Marshall board, and thinking, oh, I'll get a load of them Marshall pedals and stick them on. The first problem I found with putting Marshall pedals on there is that I've got 3 really good Marshall pedals. One of them's a reverb and I can't find it, and the other ones don't come in this series, like this sort of die-cast sort of boss size series. So I've got a Shredmaster, a Drive Master, and a Governor, an original Governor, and they don't fit on there. You know, you literally, I don't know where it is, no, the Governor. But anyway, it doesn't fit on there. The inputs come in at the top. Even if it did fit in physically, if it fitted into that slot, the leads come in the top, so there's no way of doing it. So that's the first restriction on this Marshall board. You know, it only takes certain sizes of pedals, and then you have to screw it to, or unless you use you know, what do you call it, sticky stuff like this. So I still can't think what it's called. No, brain's gone. So anyway, the pedals are tuner and then regenerator, which I like because it's got 2 different choruses in it, flanger, phaser, step phaser, and vibe. So if you're going to go gigging with a small pedal board, which I accept this isn't particularly small, but if you was going to go with like 3 or 4 pedals, if you wanted a variety of sounds, like for, you know, some sort of 80s hair metal chorusy type stuff, and phaser for Pink Floyd, and you know, flanger for like Green Day, not Green Day, Stereophonics, you know, which everybody does, you know, Dakota. If you want that, then that pedal's great because it's got all of those settings in it. But the thing is that I put this pedal board together the other night, and I quickly found that the pedals source, the power source, is not really cutting it. So I'll show you what I mean. This is the clean tone. No reverb on the amp whatsoever. The post and the pre in the volume gain stage, it's on the clean, the normal channel as opposed to the lead, and the volume, I don't know why it's set out on the normal there because it's the knob's fallen off, but volume's very low there, it's on less than 3. So tuner comes on nice and bright, just as good as a Boss tuner. Don't know how reliable it'd be long term, like with heavy gigging use. But saying that, I have got a Boss tuner on my main board, and this is like a B board, if not a C board. And I just thought I'd throw it together just out of the pedals that I've got left over from previous purchases and previous boards. So so that tuner works fine. The Boss one on my main pedal has given up the ghost as well, so I'm going to need a new one of those. But gone straight to the vibe on that. Sounds lovely. Amp still nice and clean. However, here's the problem. Unspecified milliamps from the power adapter from the wall, which actually is an electro harmonics, so it's a reasonably good one. But as soon as I press on the drive pedal and everything's set at 12 o'clock, straight up the middle, that means that the sound knob on the combo drive, which affects whether it goes from clean boost to crunch to drive, and it's meant to, you know, sound like an AC30. As soon as you press on the and that's the problem, the hum. And that's what all the clever guys with all the money and all of the editing and the best pedals always talk about, is don't use daisy chains because you need isolated power. So then going on from that, earlier on in the week when this arrived a few days ago, then I thought, well, I put that together, and it took me best part of a day really, because the Mimic I couldn't what do you call it, I couldn't drill in. I couldn't drill the blacks in, and I couldn't drill this Mooer overdrive pedal. But just before I do move on, actually, what's an interesting point on this daisy chain sort of situation. What's an interesting point is that the cheaper Mooer pedal, the Hustle Drive, which is meant to be a copy of the OCD, it's in low pass mode at the minute, or LP, and things are quiet at 12 o'clock, also I'll centralise. Yeah. So the Mooer is slightly quieter. You put the delay on. There's no hum. You put the tremolo on. no hum either. The mimic on. The mimic could have done to have gone last really, because it splits out into stereo, and when it goes out into 2 amps it's meant to sound like potentially 2 guitarists, whereas at the minute all it sounds like is a little bit of room reverb or a short room delay. Not a bad sound though. Reverb. Quite long trails actually on that. That's a Hall reverb. Does have a spring reverb. Not sure it's as good as the amp reverb. I mean, that's proper reverb. Proper spring reverb. This is digital, sort of recreated. Not a bad recreation really of the amp, I suppose. You just lose that little bit of reverb, spring sort of rattle, which can also be recreated, can't it, these days? But anyway, so my problem is Marshall pedal board, gone to all the trouble of sticking all that all over it and put the pedal, the power supply in, and then can't use it because the overdrive's just humped too much. So that is just a case of turn that off, forget about that, and what we're going to do about it. Well, what I did do about it is I thought I'd get one of these MXR Analog Innovations DC Brick. Actually bought this from Absolute Music, and I landed on that, and I thought, because I've got an isolated power pack for my main board, and that's a decibel 11, fully isolated. I don't think there's actually 11 power supplies on it, or if there are, I'm not using all of them, because some of them have got weird you know, needs and whatnot. So anyway, the MXR, and after buying it, and it cost like 85 quid, something like that, and after I've bought it, I've been reading the reviews on it and doing a little bit more research, which I should have done before, and it seems that the MXR M237 is not isolated. People are saying it's like a glorified daisy chain. So what I intend to do is power all of these pedals with this and see if the combo drive and the hustle drive sound as bad as what they did before. But this has got 18 volt options in it as well. So what I wanted to do was, as opposed to the headroom that you'd get normally on a drive pedal like that, if you power an 18 volt effect pedal, such as the Full Drive by Fulltone, it can take 9 to 18 volts DC. So I thought, well, that will fit in there, and although the leads again go plug into the top, I think there's just enough room because of how thin it is. It'll sit in there. Running that at 18 volts will mean first of all, I've still got 8 9-volt inputs to play with for other pedals, and it also means that I get a clean boost, which has got its own independent volume switch on it as well, so it's a double pedal. So although it's taking up more room than a single pedal, it doesn't quite take up as much room as 2 pedals. So that might be worth a thing to go on there, especially since I can power it at 18 volts and see what the difference in the headroom sounds like, because it might just become a completely amazing drive pedal, because at the minute at 9 volts it just sort of underwhelms me a little bit, considering how good Fulltone pedals are meant to be. I mean, it was a little bit of a clue that when I bought it, I managed to pick it up for about 95 quid, just under 100 quid, something like that. So whereas some of the other Fulltone pedals just really hold the price really well, so it might be that this is just not as fantastic a pedal as some of the other Fulltone pedals are. Like the Deja Vibe and things like that, I think that's a Fulltone pedal, but certainly Fulltone do a vibe pedal, and I've heard it and it sounds incredible. So first of all, I mean, that's the first issue is the DC Brick just a glorified daisy chain, or will it eradicate the noise of those 2 pedals? The second point of this video is, will it power this? Yes, it will. But is it going to make this sound incredible where I can no longer not have it on the board? And the final thing that I wanted to sort of ask of the DC Brick is, will it power this? Because this is a Blackstar valve distortion HT dist pedal, and it takes 22 volts DC, and I've looked online as to whether or not 18 volts will power a 22 volt pedal, you know, and a lot of people might just think, oh my god, are you joking, you know. Don't do it, because you'll blow something up, because normally if you plug an adapter into anything else like a laptop or anything like that, A, if it's not the right one, it might not fit. B, best case scenario is it'll power it. Not the worst case scenario, but like somewhere in the middle is that it just won't power it. But the worst case scenario is it won't power it, but it'll also cause it to blow up, and then you won't be able to use either the computer or the adapter again. But with overdrive pedals, from what I've learned in the last few years, is that that's not the same story with overdrive pedals, because famously Eddie Van Halen used to use an overdrive pedal, and he used to deliberately have the batteries, the 9-volt batteries, that were sort of like half worn out, so they were only putting out sort of 5 or 6 volts rather than 9, and that's called power soak. So the idea there is that you starve the pedal of voltage, and somehow again it changes the headroom of the clipping. So you have the clipping of the sound waveform going like that, and at 9 volts the clipping occurs sort of somewhere around here. Let's say if the amplitude of the sound is like that and it clips like that, compresses the sound, it clips. But with an 18 volt overdrive pedal, the headroom is a lot wider, so you hear a lot more of the frequency of the sound, and so it becomes a much nicer overdrive. So that's the idea with having that one. The idea with starving this one from 22 volts down to 18 again just interests me, because although it will be slightly more clipped than what it should be, it's still an 18 volt. It's still a pedal that's receiving 18 volts. So it might work in the same way as that does, in that it's going to be a nicer overdrive sound, but then in the same way as like starving, like Eddie Van Halen did, starving and power soaking a pedal. You know, and again, it might not be a good idea because that's got a valve in it. I don't know. You know, I'm going to try it, see what it sounds like. It might not power it at all, and see where we go from there. Hopefully it won't break it, because this was a gift from a very good friend of mine. But when he gave me it, it didn't have the power supply, so I've never used it, never aired it, only on videos on YouTube. So I'll stop the video there, and then we'll do some sounds to do with the DC Brick, powering the full drive, and then having a go at powering this. Obviously powering these lot as well, because that was the main sort of you know, reason for the pedal, to see if the DC Brick is a good option for powering 8 pedals, and if it'll power this as well at the same time, perhaps. And even that, because it's got two 18-volt, it's got 8, so it should theoretically power those 8 pedals and these 2, which are both at 18 volts, and then that'll be it, completely maxed out. And if it can do that, and it's quieter than a daisychain, then I'll be quite impressed. If it can't, then perhaps it might be a good idea to just preserve the wrapping and send it back, and just bite the bullet and spend 140 quid on the proper thing, which is the M238 as opposed to the M237, and go from there. But I'll catch you in a bit when we do some sounds.